I'm Bob Brill. He's Erik Kramer. Welcome to Kramer and Brill, an NFL podcast and videocast. Each week, we take a look at what's going on in the NFL, and during the season and run up to the season, we analyze your fantasy picks. And this week, that's what we're doing. We're taking a look at who you may draft at the wide receiver and tight end positions in your upcoming fantasy draft, which is probably going to happen in the next couple of weeks. My esteemed colleague, former Bears and Lions quarterback Erik Kramer, and I will each give out our top picks on the show today, and we give you the reasons why these guys are must first rounders, and some of them are real sleepers because I know we have a difference of opinion. I haven't seen his list, he hasn't seen mine, and we're going to have some duplicates. We know that for sure. But now, in total transparency, none of us have seen each other's list. So, Erik, I'll let you take your list one by one, starting with your top 5 wide receivers.
Well, I'm going to look for guys. I'll just go right now and say, let's just get the kind of obvious ones out of the way. There's Jamar Chase and Cooper Kupp and Justin Jefferson and on and on and on and on.
So those are all obvious, right? To you,
obvious, right? So here's a few that maybe aren't. So a former Bear also wears number 12. I'm not sure if he's going to do that with the Rams, but Allen Robinson, who just came over, didn't play last year or didn't play much, and he's stepping into a situation now where there's Cooper Kupp and a big blank spot, and I think Allen Robinson is the guy that, for some reason, the Chicago Bears didn't want. The guy's amazing. He's rangy, he's fast, he's physical, and he's, to me, the perfect complement to go not only with Cooper Kupp, but with the guy throwing Cooper Kupp the ball that's not going to be picking Allen Robinson, who, you know, talk about a red zone weapon and a weapon anywhere on the field at any time for any type of throw. So I think that's one. I think a guy named Gabriel Davis up in Buffalo. Again, now that Emmanuel Sanders is not there, and that's a growing young offense that is starting to, obviously not starting to, has been throwing the ball effectively, especially they got the best red zone passing quarterback in the NFL, and will again. And another name out there, I think, is Darnell Mooney, where with the Bears, he's now their number one. And I think that the work that both he and Justin Fields have put in now and with a new offensive coordinator, new staff, I think this opens up, he would be, to me, a great dynasty pick because he's young. He's going to be there a while. And he's already turned a bunch of heads. Another guy that I think would be Jerry Jeudy. And here's a guy that absolutely, to me, is if not the best route runners in the NFL. And now he's got a guy that can actually throw the ball in Russell Wilson, and an offense and a play caller, and just top to bottom, that's a solid team. So I think those 4 to start out with.
But and obviously I'm on board with you with Cooper Kupp as my number 1 pick. Gabriel Davis I really love. He really came on strong last year, and he's still kind of in the wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 range as far as on the checklist with them. But because Stephon Diggs is going to get most of the balls there, at least the long balls. But he actually, Davis is on my fantasy team, my dynasty team, who I picked him up last year, and we're allowed to keep 11 this year, and he's right on the cusp. I had to keep him or someone else, and I chose to keep him, or I'm choosing to keep him. I think I'm right on target with Cooper Kupp. I mean, he's got it all. He's got a great scheme. He's got, there's going to be more double teams this year, but Matthew Stafford's still solid. I think he's a breakaway guy who goes over the middle and down the field. And the thing is, he scores touchdowns. The one guy I think you left off, and whose situation has really changed, and I got high on my list, is Juju Smith-Schuster, because, wait for it, he's playing with Patrick Mahomes.
And I said, wait for it, he was once a Steeler, or thought about being a Steeler, or once flew into Pittsburgh, or...
But no, I mean, seriously, you look at Juju, this is a match made in heaven. I think it's going to prove to be a 90-plus catch combo, and I think he's going to score seriously a dozen touchdowns. I just think the scheme they have there, and with Tyreek Hill is gone, and as long as Juju stays healthy, and I think he will, I think he is going to be the target. I really like this guy. Here's a guy that last year we made jokes about, but I think this year he's back, and I'll tell you why. He's playing with Tom Brady this year. That's Julio Jones. Julio Jones, I think, he's going to play for the money. He's going to play for Brady. He's going to play for a ring. And I think you just reach out and
he's going to play with the guy that stole the last ring he was supposed to get.
That's right. There you go. See, now that all works in. I think he's got one more solid season in him, and that's why I like him in my top 5. I love Devontae Adams. He's my 4th choice because I don't think he loses a step going from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr. I think at 29 years old, he's still solid, and I expect big things from him. And then the other guy, and this is really kind of an iffy for me. I love this guy, and I think despite the fact that he's got a new quarterback, and I think because he has a new quarterback at the same time, I think
I know where you're going with this, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm looking at a guy in Seattle named DK Metcalf. Yeah. I mean, he's going to get the ball more often in Seattle just by sheer will. So I like him to break out this year. And while there are more capable 1 and 2 down receivers, I think it's a must that they get this guy the ball. And Russell Wilson didn't all the last couple of years. And I think with Drew Lock there, and I'm not a big fan of Drew Lock, but I think Drew Lock says, I got to get the ball to DK Metcalf because he's the stud that's going to score me the touchdowns and break it away. And I think he gets the first look every time or near every time, depending on the situation in Seattle. So,
I've heard Drew Lock's actually had a good camp so far.
I haven't watched his camp, so you know more than me, but that's a good sign, and I think.
Let me throw one more name out there.
Yeah.
Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah. Oh, no, he was in my top 10. Definitely. Okay. I love Pittman. I love USC.
He's an obvious one to most people, you think, because he's a guy that I think maybe not a lot of people think of because Colts are such a great running team, but he is actually now he's got a guy that in Matt Ryan who's been around a while, but is still phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I think Matt Ryan might be the missing piece to that team. And I think Michael Pittman's going to be taking advantage of that.
And I think I've said it so many times, USC wide receivers are always solid players. I mean, I don't remember one. I'm sure there are some who went bust, but, I don't remember guys that didn't. I mean, that did go bust. I just think when they come out of USC, for some reason, the wide receivers, even more than the running backs, and certainly more than the quarterbacks, are top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys, and that goes back to Juju Smith-Schuster as well. So, the one guy we didn't mention, and I think it's kind of a hybrid reason would be Deebo Samuel. I think he's going to be really good. I know you mentioned Jamar Chase, and I had Jamar Chase. I
would say the other guy in San Francisco that people might overlook is Brandon Ayuk.
Yes,
because he took off last year.
Yeah, he's been coming on. I think he's finally had that situation. I don't know what his confidence or whatever, but it's opportunity too. So opportunity. Now we turn to the tight ends, and I'll go first on this one. I mean, Travis Kelce, and it's because I'm going to back this. I like Travis Kelce number 1 anyway, but I think he's even better because of Juju Smith-Schuster's presence. I think he takes the heat off Kelce, and who's going to catch at least 80 balls this year. Easily my top pick. I don't think you can lose with Kyle Pitts of Atlanta after a strong rookie season. Question mark his touchdowns. Didn't have many, but I think that improves this year with Marcus Mariota, quarterback, who should scramble enough to find an open tight end safety valve and volume sort of like by necessity. He's going to look for the guy that may be open at close by. Mark Andrews, I'm pretty sure will shine again. At 26, he's still going to catch around 80 balls. Remember, it's Lamar Jackson who's throwing to him, or maybe not throwing to him. Still solid there. I think George Kittle remains solid, I think, despite some lacklusterness last year, if that's a word. And my choice, and I know you're going to say this is no surprise. You're waiting for this one. He's coming off a solid rookie year. He's a stud. He's a guy you'll be hearing a lot about. Maybe not so much this year, but you're going to hear a lot about him in the future, is Pat Freiermuth of the Steelers. And he's only going to catch probably 40 or 50 balls in the Steelers game, but he's going to get some TDs, and tight ends are touchdown dependent more than any other position. And I really like him. People were saying he's the second coming of Heath Miller. And if you're the second coming of Heath Miller, that's not bad.
And I'll throw a couple names out there that we've talked about in the past. One being TJ Hawkinson. I think that guy's going to make a major leap because I think Jared Goff is finally settling into now what he's doing. And in watching Hawkinson develop over these last couple of years, last year to me, it was obvious he was a very central part to their passing game. He's a great run blocker, but he's kind of like a George Kittle. And you can't not take advantage of that guy on your roster. They've got one of the best offensive lines in the game, and I think they're going to make a big jump, and I think he'll be a beneficiary of he and Goff and just that expansion of that offense.
Plus, they've got a good running back there to take some of the heat off.
Got a couple, and I think that don't forget Dallas, man. Dalton Schultz is solid to begin with, and then now you've got a team that loves to throw the ball. Dak Prescott, to me, is one of the best top, 3 or 4 quarterbacks in the NFL. Their offense is solid every single year, mostly because of what he does and how he distributes the ball around. And I think Dalton Schultz is just too good not to take. And the one other guy that I would put in there that you might see coming would be Cole Kmet. And the people I've talked to back in Chicago say that offense is, whether they light the world on fire, the NFL world on fire this year or not, I'm not sure, but they are doing all the little things well for the first time in a long time. And I think he's a big talent that was underused in the past. And I think given Justin Fields' development, young quarterbacks, especially ones that can make things happen on their own, love the tight end across the middle. And Cole Kmet is every bit of a guy that's athletic enough, down the field threat, and I think he's going to take off this year too.
I think the two guys that are sort of on the bubble are Noah Fant and Darren Waller. Yep. Waller, was just amazing, and then all of a sudden just kind of faded, and I'm not sure why. And Fant has always been on the cusp, and now he's in Seattle with Drew Lock. Maybe Drew Lock looks at him in a situation that's like he's a familiar face. Maybe that helps him get some more targets. And relate fantasy to NFL, and really, purists don't like that, because guys in fantasy, you look at the targets, you look at this, and it's becoming more, as you watch games and stuff, it's becoming more of the technology. The fantasy technology is moving.
I love all these little terms that have now popped up over the last 5 years, right? It's targets, it's 50-50 balls, it's all this nerdy talk about football. No, it's not. If you've got range, you've got range. If you're an aggressive guy that goes to get the ball, that's who you are. These little nerdy pipsqueaks that sit around and come up with all these little new that's so stupid. Can the guy catch? Can he play? Can he not play? That's all that matters. And
you hear guy, the mainstream broadcasters mentioning the terms now, because so much. If the thing about it is,
let me just cut you off there real quick, and I'll say this. I remember a game this past year where Troy Aikman goes, he's really good at high pointing the ball. And he goes, oh, why did I say that? I would told myself never to say that, and that's what I'm talking about. You're right. It is out there, and you can almost not. It's hard not to say it, but it's all a bunch of crap at the same time.
Well, and the networks play it up because they have to, because that's the audience, and the NFL loves that. Is that if you look at the stats at the bottom of the screen, it always used to be what the teams were doing, the scores. Now it's the top running backs touchdown wise, the wide receiver catches, all across the bottom of the screen, and that's all targeted fantasy, and that's because this is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and it has taken off to the point where it has brought in fans of the game who were never fans of the game.
Like female fans, kid fans, because they're all in the fantasy football.
Women fans, gambling fans, and now the NFL and the leagues are made it pretty obvious they're tied to gambling, and that's a big part of it too, because now the gamblers and the gambling sites look at those exact fantasy things. They play the fantasy, and it's kind of sad that it's gone that way, but it's part of the NFL marketing,
I
and
agree
the
with you.
NFL
And if
markets
there's one
anything
thing
better
that
than
league can
anybody.
do, it's market itself.
Yep, they do it better than anybody else.
I would go back real quick to say this about Darren Waller. This is an energized team, and they've got top to bottom on both sides of the ball. They're loaded.
Mhm.
And I think they've got a fresh attitude toward this year. And I don't care if it's running the ball, throwing the ball, playing defense. This is going to be probably, in my opinion, one of the top teams in terms of improvement from last year to this year.
Oh, I agree with you. And I think in the very, very, very competitive AFC West, this is going to be a
They got
real
everything everyone else
marquee
has.
battle. Yeah. I mean, between the four teams and the four and three great quarterbacks that are there right now, I think it's just going to be just a fun. I think you're going to see more AFC West games on national broadcasts than you have before. And I haven't looked at the Sunday night and Thursday night schedules, but I'm sure they're up there this year. So
yeah, and I was told today I'm thinking of going to the Bears alumni game, which is the first game of the year this year,
okay.
which is against the Raiders. So we'll see.
Oh wow!
We'll see how good both of them are.
That's what's that? First week in September.
It's I want to say I think the game is September 11th.
Gotcha.
So yeah.
Well, next week we're going to talk about the latest updates because as we get that close to the season, players get hurt, in training camp, players get injured, players get traded, players get cut. Those guys that are still out there could get signed. So we're going to take a look at that as we get ready for your fantasy draft. That's going to do it for another edition of Kramer and Brill. Don't forget to join us next time wherever you get your shows and on my Bob Brill YouTube channel. For my friend and colleague Erik Kramer, we'll see you next time.